Hi, welcome to my workshop on canine communication, how to read dog body language. This is a super important topic. If anybody asks me, what do I need to know in order to become a dog trainer, I say first and foremost, learn as much as you can about reading the animals in front of you. Canine body language is not our natural means of communication. We're more verbal creatures, so it doesn't come naturally to us. So I'm going to go through some of the mistakes that our clients will often make and things that I think are really important to point out. I could speak for an entire weekend on canine body language, so I've tried to pare this down to sort of some common mistakes that people make, some places where we need to step in and translate for our dogs. It'll really help us meet the needs of our canine clients, and it'll also help us stay safe and anticipate any problems that might come up. We're going to do our best to hone some observation skills, fine-tune some stuff for you guys, and some of the important things to think about when you're learning canine body language is to really think about taking behavior in context, and also take note that different types of dogs, different body types will read a little bit differently depending on whether they've got natural ears, floppy ears, prick ears, whether they've got a full tail or a dot tail or no tail. It's all going to be important to take into account. So I think these are the top 5 body language facts that our clients need to know. I constantly find myself translating for the dogs. So I'll talk about the concept of word, sentence, paragraph. We're going to go through some of the displacement or stress signals that dogs may show that clients often really miss. I also think it's important to teach about affiliative signals, friendly signals. We need to recognize when the dogs are trying to interact with us as opposed to just looking for the negative signals. We'll talk a little bit about signs of fear, ways that dogs might shut down, and I really think the concept of giving dogs choice is super important. So we are going to be the translators for our clients' dogs. They're not all stuffed dogs like Rocky in the middle here. Real dogs speak all the time. They pay such close attention to us. They really respond to our body language, to our words, but we as humans tend to miss a lot of what we're saying. So one thing that I find myself doing, I do dog, cat, and horse behavior consulting, and one of my big roles is to translate what the dog is saying. Even something as simple as a client petting a dog, they'll be whacking it on top of the head and the dog will be like, stop, stop, stop. And the client won't even see that. They won't recognize how to tell what kind of touch a dog likes even. So really important stuff to translate for these 3 real dogs in the picture. They're not all stuffed. So here's the concept of word, sentence, paragraph. So if I showed you a word, what does that mean to you? That's just a moment in time. Am I talking about a bird call? Am I talking about call me on the phone? It could mean anything. Just seeing one little piece of body language out of context tells you nothing about the book this is from. Okay, this is giving you a little bit of a hint. Perhaps you have read Moby Dick. This is the first sentence of Moby Dick, and this may, if you've read the book, it may be bringing up some memories and some images for you, but it still doesn't tell you much. If you haven't read the book, you don't know what this means. But here's the whole first paragraph. You can pause the recording and read it if you want, but there's a lot of stuff going on here. And it's the same when you're reading dog body language. If you just see, I'm sure you've seen this online, you've got a friend and they've posted a picture of their child and their dog, and the dog is showing the whites of his eyes, some whale eye, or licking his nose like this guy is here, a little bit of a tongue flick or a lip lick. And you might go, oh my God, that poor dog, he's so stressed. But you're just seeing one word. In these photographs, they're just a snapshot in time. So let's pull the camera back a little bit and look at the whole sentence. So yeah, he is licking his lips, which is a stress sign or a displacement signal. But sometimes they're just wetting their nose. You got to look at the whole context. It's a little bit hard to tell what's going on, but he does look concerned about what's going on with this larger black and white dog in front of him. We're seeing a little bit more in a wider photograph, but until you see these animals in movement, you look at the environment around them, you're not really going to know what's going on. So let's see what was really happening in this little interaction.
And I'm too sexy for Milan, too sexy for Milan, New York and Japan. I'm too sexy for your party, too sexy for your party. No way.
Okay, I like putting dogs to music. It's one of my vices. So yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a third dog in this interaction. There is an older female dog. I can tell you that she is a dog who has never played with other dogs, and that's my little pit bull, and he's being very flirty with her. But he's concerned because she's very stiff. She's not really giving any affiliative signals back to him, which is why you got the tongue flick and a few other stress signals. You can come back and look at this after you watch the whole webinar and pick out some more. So this is how we have to look at dog body language. We really have to look at the context, and what you don't know is the history of these dogs. I told you a little bit about Stella, the black and white one. My pit bull is from a dog fighting bust. He should not be this dog friendly, but he is. And the little old one in the background is not really a participant in this discussion, but she's often a splitter. She'll come in and interrupt things if it gets too intense. So there's lots going on here. We haven't even got to the whole book behind these dogs, but just think about the concept of word, sentence, paragraph when you're explaining body language, and it'll make it easier to explain to your clients. The other really important thing is to look at behavior on a spectrum. So this is my dog Sarah. She could have many moods, from the rather grumpy face on the left to the softer, more affiliative face on the right, and everything in between. So just as it's hard to tell where the red becomes the orange becomes the yellow, it's hard to tell where the offensive aggression that's happening in the left-hand side becomes a softer look in the middle, becomes the very relaxed dog you see on the right. So there's many spectrums, but try to think of, like, not Sarah is an aggressive dog because I saw her in the snapshot on the left, or Sarah is a happy dog because I saw her in the snapshot on the right. Think about behavior as being on a full spectrum in between. And one other thing that's super important is to think about describing behavior objectively. So I called her grumpy. I'm guilty of this. I do this all the time. I anthropomorphize. But when you're talking about behavior, if I needed to describe to a vet behaviorist who's going to take over the case or who's going to advise on some medication for Sarah, I would want to describe the body language on the left as stiff with an offensive pucker, pupils dilated. So think about what the dog's doing. Describe what they're doing rather than she looks angry on the left. If I said this dog looks angry, you might picture something very different from what I picture. You might say she looks happy on the right, but think about what is she doing. Her mouth is open, she is panting, her ears are forward, her eyes are squinty. So it's really important for us as behavior professionals to learn to describe behavior objectively rather than adding our own emotions or our own interpretations to it. So the mantra here is, what is the dog doing? Paint me a picture. And this is a good way to talk to your clients and get them to describe. I'm going to see a client today whose dog was in a fight, and what I want to know is what happened before, during, after, what was the body language like, and that'll help me determine where the aggression came from and also how to treat it. So another spectrum to think about is, where is the dog on the loose versus stiff spectrum? When I'm deciding how to interact with the client's dog, I look really carefully at this. Or when I'm deciding how to take a shelter dog out of a kennel, I'm going to look at where they are. So some of the points you're going to look at are elbow bends. Is the dog bending his elbows, or are they stiff? You're going to look at paw raises in this one. You're also going to look at how stiff or curved the spine is. So here's Exhibit A. So if you're feeling ambitious, go back and count how many paw raises there were in that little bit of body language he was showing you. This is about as loose as a dog can get. He's hitting himself with his tail. His spine is C-shaped one way and then it's C-shaped the other way. Everything about this dog is loose and floppy and affiliative. It's really important to teach clients the affiliative signals that dogs give us as well. What about this guy? If you had to take him out of a shelter cage, how would you approach him? So the only thing moving about this dog is his eyes, a little bit of his head. There are 0 affiliative signals. And when I play this video at my seminars, people always laugh. I'm not sure why, because nothing about this dog seems funny to me. I would be very careful taking him out of the kennel. Sometimes when you open the door, they will change how they perceive you, but a dog who's not bending his elbows, the mouth is closed, the eyes are hard, there's a lot of white showing, I would approach him a lot more carefully. His spine is perfectly straight. There's nothing loose or floppy about that guy. So again, you got to take the behavior in context. I show a lot of pictures of my dear departed Doberman, his name's Duncan, at my seminars, and he's often showing a lot of teeth. And Duncan was actually a saint among dogs. He never showed aggression towards anybody. But he had very dramatic expressions when he was playing. So this is a dog who is just playing, but I caught him at a pretty scary looking moment with all of his teeth showing. I'm sure we've all had pictures of ourselves taken where we're making funny expressions. I do that all the time. So it's really important to take all of the behavior into context and get the whole story. So when I'm looking at reading dog body language, a lot of us get obsessed with starting at the tail, and I think it's really important to look at the bitey end first. We're going to look at the shape of the eye, how much tension there is in the face, how much white is showing. So on the left side, this is my mini Aussie Cosmo. You'll see him a little later. On the left, his eye is squinty and soft. You could almost always see a little bit of white on his eyes, just the way he was shaped. But that's one of the few pictures I have where his eyes are so squinty you can hardly see any white. In the middle, you can see his eyes have been pulled by the facial tension into a very round shape. That was when he had some pretty serious dementia, and he spent a lot of time pacing and panting at night with that expression on his face. Now on the right, you've got a bit of a conflict because you've got the almond-shaped eye, but you've got a lot of white showing. So that is, he's just looking off to the side. The shape and the facial tension is always going to be the thing you look at first, as opposed to the amount of white, because, like I said, you could often see a lot of white on Cosmo's eyes, which some people found alarming and some people found cute. So we need to teach clients signs of active affiliations, whether it's between dogs or dogs and dogs, or whether it's between dogs and humans. I have another workshop coming up on dog play, so I'm not going to go into too much on that in this one. But you can see on the left, that's Theodore is my poster child for active affiliation. He is probably licking her ear. He might be flea nibbling behind it. That's another affiliative sign that he often gives to both humans and dogs. And you can see the soft expression, the ears are back, the everything sort of going forward towards the object of affection. And that's who he is. He's a very, very affiliative dog. Another thing that we look for is the soft eyes. So you can see both of these dogs have a very soft expression. Not all dogs enjoy being hugged. I've got a lot of pictures of dogs being hugged in this presentation. I've realized that is something that I do teach clients. The only time dogs hug one another is when they're fighting or when they're mating. So it is not something that they're wired to enjoy. They can certainly learn to enjoy it. And that's my dog Kenya on the right, who definitely learned to enjoy that kind of contact. And you can see I'm not squishing her into me, but both of these dogs have soft faces, squinty eyes, very loose, soft expressions. The soft eyes really often go with an open mouth. I believe both of those pictures were taken on cold days before this, but here's a couple more dogs where you can see the ears are back in the Doberman on the left and the ears are more forward, but both of these dogs have very soft, squinty eyes with their mouths open. So I like to say I like dogs who are breathing, so it's something to teach clients to watch for, especially people want to go and pet every dog who's tied up somewhere or is in here in Asheville, we're allowed to take dogs pretty much everywhere, and I have a Doberman who doesn't particularly love strangers. I take her into the hardware store sometimes, and I am constantly just stopping people from petting her. She is giving zero signs she wants to interact. She's looking away. She's trying to avoid eye contact with everybody, and I have to keep her safe constantly because here in Asheville, everybody thinks dogs are for petting. But the Doberman in this picture was a senior dog that I rescued years ago, and that was the expression she gave everybody. She wanted every human to touch her. You can see how welcoming both of these guys are. So as the dog becomes more alert or more aroused, the eyes may get rounder, the ears may pop forward, and often the mouth shuts. So this is Theodore. He's just begging for some food, but you can see he's very alert. There's some facial tension. His eyes are quite round. This is not an unfriendly signal, but it is a dog who is definitely a little more aroused than the ones in the last pictures. And by aroused, I just mean a heightened state of, a heightened physiological state. So as the dog becomes more fearful or more worried, the eye will become more round. You'll see more white. On the left, you can see the white is underneath. She's looking up at me. I am trying to get Lily into the bathtub, and she is trying to be invisible on the floor. And the dog on the right is actually having a medical issue. She's an older dog having a vestibular attack. She's very dizzy and not feeling well. And you can see the worry, or it might be pain, it might be dizziness in her eyes. But those are two dogs who are definitely concerned about what's going on. Here's another one. Very good reason to be concerned. Cats are very pointy. He did a little cheek puff there as well when the cat smacked him. But that was some extreme whale eye, a lot of white showing. A hard eye is something a lot of clients won't recognize, especially when it's combined with a freeze. I'll talk a little more about freezes in a minute, but this is from a really great article by Nicole Wilde called The Threat of Stillness that I really recommend you read. This is a dog who is stiff and still and giving a threat gesture. And once the dogs start showing teeth with that hard eye, again, that's just Duncan playing on the left, but it does look like a pretty hard expression on these dogs. They are not once they get to this level of threat, people understand that the dog wants them to stop what they're doing. But I'd love for people to learn the subtle things that happen before they make the dogs show their teeth. Another subtle thing you can look for is the pupil size. You can't always see this depending on the dog's eye color and the lighting. But this is a dog I was pet sitting who her pupils suddenly got huge while she was on my lap one day. Nothing else changed about her, and I just looked at what had happened in the environment, and one of my other dogs had come over for attention. So she didn't growl, she didn't freeze, she didn't snark, but her eyes told me that she was concerned about this dog being so close. So ears are one of those things that is so different from dog to dog. I'm just going to show you two extremes. The dog on the left is my crop-eared pit bull Theodore, so his ears can go from all the way forward to all the way back. And that's my Puerto Rican dog Lily on the right, and she can only move the bases of her ears. She can bring them as far forward as you see on the left and as far back as you see on the right. So you have to look a little bit more at the base of the ears with your floppy-eared dog. But I'll talk a little bit about the different expressions of ears, but you've got to look at the rest of the dog to really know what's going on. This is my illustration for considering how the ears are put together when you're looking at it. And you can also often tell what the dog's going to interact with by following those ears and see what they're focused on, even if you're behind them out on a walk. So if the dog is thinking about coming forward offensively, the ears will often be forward. If the dog is reacting out of fear, like the one on the right, the eyes will all often be back. And the body language will go along with this. You'll have the body pushed a little more forward with an offensive dog and pulled a little more back with a defensive dog. So it just helps you know where the emotion is coming from. Here's yet another of my 4 Dobermans over the years, and she's got sort of intense eyes. They're not quite fully round. I am on the wrong side of a fence. She is wondering if she is going to get to come in the car with me, and her ears are pulled all the way back in a worried / pleading gesture. This is Kenya. She's got her ears completely forward. She is very alert. She's at the beach. I have her favorite ball, and she is on her tiptoes waiting for me to throw it, but you can see by the ears where she's focused, and it gives you some idea of how excited she is. She actually, that right ear only came fully up when she was really excited. It usually flopped over. Here's a little video of some more playful ears. When the ears go back and rotate a little bit to the side, you often get some more flirty or playful behavior after that. So the pit bull with the larger ears is really showing this well right there. He's got them back, he's got them to the side. It's a little harder to tell with Theodore because his ears have been cropped. But watching your videos in slow-mo will help you see a lot of these gestures. I was so excited the first time I got a camera that did slow motion because you can see so many micro expressions with these dogs. But these are, I want you to watch the ears in this one. These are some very playful ears. It goes along with the bent elbows, with the soft body language, with the C-shaped spine. So looking at the length of the lip is also important. These dogs are all showing a very long lip. They are all worried about something, fearful. The 2 on the right were taken at the veterinarian's office. They were not thrilled with being at the veterinarian's office. So you can see that the lip goes all the way to under the dog's eyes in these 3 dogs who all have sort of normal facial shapes. Again, you're going to have to adjust all of this. If you're looking at a bulldog, they may not be able to even make some of these expressions. As the dog becomes more alert and is focused on something in front of them, you can see the mouth has gone from open to closed. That's always something I watch for. And the lip is not going all the way under the eye. It's a little more a moderate position here. And then as the lip becomes shorter, the dog has more potential to come forward offensively. So both of these dogs, you can see the lip is not at all under the eye anymore. It's about halfway to the nose. And this is what happens right before the top of the lip starts curling up and you start seeing those teeth.